For the 9th Veterans Day in a row, Catherine set the porch table for two: fried chicken, collard greens, and a folded camouflage cap on the empty chair. She lit a candle. The small flame fought the November breeze. Then she settled onto the porch swing and waited. He was never late. The empty chair held only the cap and a long, patient silence. At 2 o'clock, a Greyhound bus turned onto her quiet street. 7 elderly men stepped down, all in marine dress blues, medals glinting. They walked toward her iron gate, straight-backed and somber.
"Ma'am, are you Catherine? David sent us, ma'am. He's dying."
Catherine stood frozen. The shadows of the 7 Marines stretched across her porch, merging with her own. 8 years of silence were about to break open. 8 years earlier, on the first Veterans Day after her husband's funeral, Catherine noticed a man in the abandoned lot across the street. He was old, gray-bearded, wearing a soiled field jacket with a faded Vietnam patch. He sat on that crate like a man who had nowhere left to go.
"Mama, why you keep staring at that homeless man?"
Catherine didn't turn around. She'd been watching him for weeks, sleeping under that tarp, never begging, never speaking.
"Go inside and get me a plate, baby. Porcelain, not plastic. A plate. You gonna feed him?"
She didn't answer. Inside, she scribbled a note, "For a veteran," and pinned it under a plate of fried chicken. When the old man finally crossed the street, he stared at the plate like he was being tested. Then he sat on the step and ate with his bare hands. From behind the lace curtain, Catherine watched. He never looked up, never smiled, until he finished and gave a slow, deliberate nod toward the window. Then he set the plate down, walked back to the lot, and disappeared. Catherine didn't know his name, but she knew she'd set a second plate every Veterans Day. The next Veterans Day, Catherine set a second plate and pulled out an extra chair. David stared at the new chair like a trap. Then he sat down heavily. Inside, Catherine watched. He kept glancing at the empty chair as he ate. Year 3. Maya returned from college and found her mother setting the porch table again.
"Mama, it's been 3 years. You don't even know if he's a real veteran. He's served. That's all I need to know. Nobody should spend Veterans Day alone."
Maya rolled her eyes but stayed. She watched from behind the curtain as David approached.
He really nods, right at the window, like he's thanking her.
Maya didn't say a word, but when she left for school, the memory of that nod followed her. Catherine kept the chair out. Every year, the table grew a little fuller. One afternoon, a neighbor paused at the fence and told Catherine the old man's name was David. The next week, Catherine drove to the thrift store. She found a used camouflage cap, a marine cover, and paid $2. On Veterans Day, she placed the cap on the empty chair and waited. David saw the cap from the sidewalk. He stopped, his eyes fixed on it, jaw tight. From the window, Catherine held her breath. He didn't touch it, but he looked at the house longer than usual. He ate in silence, then walked back to the lot. The cap remained where she'd placed it. Year 5. Catherine cooked all morning: collard greens, cornbread, fried chicken. She set the table as if expecting a guest who might finally stay. David arrived and stopped in front of the chair. He stared at the cap, then sat down. This time, he nodded directly at the window and held his gaze. Catherine's hand pressed against the glass. She nodded back, though he couldn't see her. After he left, she came outside and touched the cap herself. It was warm from the sun, and she felt something shift. Year 6. David's walk was slower. He used a branch for a cane as he stepped onto the curb. His foot caught. He stumbled and fell to one knee. Catherine rushed outside, but David raised a hand, fierce and clear. "Number."
"He won't let me help. He'd rather fall alone."
He rose slowly, brushed off his trousers, and sat at the table, but each forkful trembled. That year, she added a candle to the table, a small light against the growing darkness. Year 7. David barely made it up the steps. He sat, looked at the cap, then turned to the window and mouthed a single phrase.
Thank you. He said thank you.
Catherine pressed her hand to her mouth. She couldn't hold back the tears. She knew then he was fading, and she swore that next year she would break the silence and sit beside him. Year 8. David could barely shuffle across the street, his stick splintered under his weight. Catherine didn't set the table that year. She placed the plate on the top step, with the cap beside it. He reached the porch, breath heavy, and lowered himself onto the step. He leaned against the post, too tired for the chair. He ate slowly, each bite a private battle. Then he looked at the window for a full minute. No nod, just looking.
He's saying goodbye. I can feel it.
She wept against the glass, and the candle she'd lit years ago flickered out.
Maya, I think this was his last year. He looked at me like he was memorizing the house.
Mama, you gave him something no one else did. If he can't come back, you'll still have all those years.
If he comes next year, I'll sit right there on the porch. No more silence.
She held the cap to her chest and stared at the empty lot. A year is a long time for a dying man. Year 9. Catherine woke before sunrise, fried chicken, simmered greens, set the table with the folded cap and a fresh candle. By 10, she sat on the porch swing, rehearsing her first words. David, I am Catherine. Please, sit with me. Noon passed. The candle flickered against an empty street.
Maya, have you heard anything? He's never been this late.
No, Mama. Maybe he's just sick. You know he wouldn't miss it if he could walk.
I called the VA, but without a last name they can't tell me anything. He could be anywhere. The lot is empty. His tarp is sagging. He's not there.
By 1:30, the food was cold, the greens congealed. She refused to move it. The candle guttered in the wind, nearly spent.
Where are you, David? I promised I'd talk to you this year.
She pushed open the iron gate and stepped onto the sidewalk. The lot was still. The tarp sagged like a collapsed lung. No David. She returned to the porch and sat heavily on the swing. The plate was still full. The candle finally sputtered out. Wax pooled around the glass. Catherine didn't move. She stared at the dead wick and let a terrible possibility settle in her chest. Then, at 2 o'clock, a deep engine rumbled down the street. She looked up to see a Greyhound bus turning the corner, its silver side catching the sun. It slowed and parked right at her curb, engine hissing. The door folded open with a hydraulic sigh. 7 elderly men stepped down. They were all in full marine dress blues, medals glinting in the afternoon light. Catherine gripped the iron gate, her voice barely a whisper.
How do you know David? He never told me anything.
The silver-haired Marine removed his cover and stepped closer.
Ma'am, I am Sergeant Morley. We were his squad in Vietnam. All 7 of us. He's in the VA hospice now, dying. He asked us to come here today in his place.
He extended a folded camouflage cover. White thread stitched inside spelled out a single word. Catherine took it, fingers trembling, and read the name stitched inside.
This was his. I bought one just like it for the chair.
He wanted you to know now, ma'am, because he can't be the man you fed anymore.
Catherine clutched the cover to her chest. The silence of 8 years broke into a sob. Catherine wiped her eyes, pushed the gate open wider, and gestured toward the porch.
Come on to the porch, all of you. The food's cold by now, but there's enough if you'll share.
The 7 men filed through the gate and crowded around the small table, their dress blues brushing the worn wood.
Ma'am, we haven't eaten since dawn, thank you.
They broke the fried chicken with their hands, passed the collard greens bowl around, and ate silently for a moment. Maya had driven home after her mother's call. She stepped onto the porch carrying a stack of folding chairs, then stopped at the sight.
This is my daughter, Maya. She's watched this ritual since she was a teenager.
David saved a man's life under heavy fire. Carried him 4 miles to the LZ. That's the kind of squad leader he was. But he'd also make us laugh. Every night he'd sing, "I am so lonesome I could cry," in the worst Hank Williams voice.
Catherine laughed through fresh tears. The empty chair beside her suddenly felt full.
We came from 6 different states. David's request was the one order we'd never refuse.
My husband was a veteran, too. When he passed, I needed to honor someone who served.
Then you understand this bond, ma'am. Thank you for giving him back his dignity. David is at a VA hospice 90 miles from here. Will you come with us tomorrow to see him?
Yes, I'll go. I've waited 8 years to speak to him.
Mama, I'll stay and watch the house. You go.
We'll pick you up at 8. 2 of us will drive. You won't be alone unless you choose it.
Catherine nodded, pressing the folded cover to her lips. The porch felt like holy ground. The 7 men stood. Each touched the faded cap on the empty chair before stepping off the porch. They'd return at dawn. That night, Catherine sat on the porch swing, David's cap in her lap. Maya wrapped her arms around her. Tomorrow she'd meet him. At 8 sharp, a sedan pulled up. 2 Marines helped Catherine into the back seat, her navy dress pressed, and David's cover on her lap. As the car pulled away, she looked back at her porch. The empty chair and cold plate blurred past the window.
David earned a Bronze Star for carrying a wounded man 4 miles through a rice paddy under fire. But when he came home, he couldn't stand the noise. He disappeared for years. We lost him, too.
Why did he end up in that lot? He never spoke a word to me.
He chose to be invisible. The lot was the only place no one expected anything of him.
But why keep coming back? Why me?
He said, "The man you fed wasn't a hero, just a hungry man. He needed that."
Catherine stared out the window, the highway a smear of gray. She clutched David's cover like a lifeline. The low VA building emerged, flag at half-mast. Her heart hammered as the car slowed to a stop. Catherine paused at room 147. Through the window, she saw David, a thin shape under white sheets, oxygen tubes across his face. She pushed the door open and stepped inside. The only sound was the mechanical wheeze of a monitor. She walked to the side of the bed and gently lifted his hand. His skin was cool, too light.
You came.
I had to. I've been waiting 8 years to say your name. David.
The cap on the chair, your porch, was the only place I felt like a man again, not a burden.
He saw it all. My gift shop cap, my silent watching, he understood.
You never asked. You just fed me. That was the gift.
Catherine pressed his hand against her cheek and wept without sound. For a long moment, they stayed like that. The quiet in the room was deeper than any silence they'd ever shared.
I asked my squad to come, all 7 of them. I wanted you to know I had brothers.
You were never alone, David. Not all those years. I was right across the street.
Tell them. Don't let her forget.
I promise I'll never forget. I'll make sure people remember you as the hero you are.
David's breathing grew shallow. The monitor's beep slowed into a mournful cadence. Outside the door, the 7 Marines heard the change. They rose as one, backs straight. Catherine stroked his hand, her thumb tracing the veins on his papery skin.
It's okay now. You can rest. I am here.
His eyes closed. The hand in hers went slack, but the monitor still beeped, faint, stubborn, in the hallway. Sergeant Morley bowed his head. The vigil began. The monitor's beep stretched into a single tone. David's hand stilled in hers.
Oh, David, you are free now.
The 7 Marines filed in silently. One by one, they approached the bed and saluted.
Until Valhalla, brother.
Catherine held on until the last Marine stepped back. Then she let go and broke down. Sergeant Morley crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. She sobbed into his coat of medals. They moved to the hallway, sliding down against the wall. 7 old men and 1 woman sitting on the cold floor, grieving together.
He wasn't alone. None of us are now.
A nurse quietly closed the door to room 147. The folded cover with David's name stayed on the bedside table, right next to Catherine's chair. In that quiet hallway, Catherine knew these 7 men would never be strangers again. That night, Catherine stepped onto the porch. Maya ran out and hugged her without a word.
He died holding my hand, Maya. He thanked me for that silly cap I bought at the thrift store.
It wasn't silly, Mama. You gave him a place where he could be human.
That lot, I am going to turn it into a park. Benches, flowers, and a bronze plate on a table. He won't be forgotten.
Weeks later, letters arrived from the squad. Each Marine had enclosed a donation for the memorial. One read, "Dear Catherine, use this to build something that remembers him. Morley."
A park where people can sit and remember. 7 benches for his 7 brothers. A bronze plate always empty.
She drafted a petition and walked the neighborhood, gathering signatures from every door. She filed it with the city, her voice steady, David's cover in her pocket. She held David's cover to her heart and started the paperwork that would turn a forgotten lot into a place of honor. Through spring and summer, the abandoned lot changed. Construction crews laid a concrete base, and Catherine planted marigolds along the edge. 7 wooden benches arrived, arranged in a circle around a small stone table. She made sure each bench faced the table. The park opened on a quiet afternoon, a small green space with a bronze plate at its center. On the plate, a single word was engraved. Remember that the 11th of November, Catherine set the porch table as she had for 9 years. 2 plates, collard greens, fried chicken, the folded cover on the empty chair.
No bus this year. No David. Just the empty park across the street.
She sat on the swing and stared at the bronze plate, tiny in the distance.
I promised I'd never forget. But today the silence is heavier than ever.
Tears came, and she didn't stop them. The bronze plate waited across the street, empty and gleaming in the afternoon sun. 1 year later, on the 2nd Veterans Day since David's death, Catherine set the porch table again. She placed his folded cover on the empty chair and lit the candle without waiting. Before noon, a familiar Greyhound bus appeared. It didn't stop at her curb. It parked outside the park. The 7 Marines stepped out, carrying covered dishes and bouquets of flowers. They walked through the park gate, not toward her house. From her window, Catherine froze, all 7 of them, taking the benches one by one.
They're here. They really came back.
She put on her navy dress, picked up David's cover, and walked across the street.
We told you we'd return, Catherine. We'll never miss a Veterans Day.
You brought food and flowers. You didn't have to.
They made room for her on a bench. She placed David's cover on the bronze plate, and for the first time, it didn't feel empty. In that park, surrounded by David's brothers, Catherine felt the ritual had found a new home. They spread the food on the stone table, fried chicken, casseroles, sweet potato pie, all around the bronze plate. Maya arrived with her own dish and her small children, who placed wildflowers on the bronze plate.
David once told us the best mess hall was a woman's front porch. He was right.
Morley reached into his pocket and handed Catherine a small wooden box.
This is his bronze star. We thought it should stay here, with you.
Catherine lifted the medal out and placed it gently in the center of the bronze plate, next to David's cover.
This plate won't ever be empty again. It'll hold his bravery and your brotherhood.
They raised paper cups of sweet tea and toasted David, the sound carrying across the small park.
As long as we're breathing, we'll be here every the 11th of November.
A porch, a park, a bronze plate. Family takes root in the smallest places.
5 years passed. Every the 11th of November, the Greyhound returned, though some men now leaned on canes and one rolled in a wheelchair. Catherine's hair had grayed, but her navy dress and red-white-blue ribbon were the same. The bronze plate held only David's cover and bronze star. Never food. Maya's children grew taller, each year placing wildflowers beside the medal. The bench with the small brass plaque for David became Catherine's place.
I talk to you here, David. The park hears everything now.
She sat there many afternoons, speaking to the silence as if he were beside her. On Veterans Day, the squad would find her there, and they'd all sit together until sunset. The abandoned lot had become a small green heart in the neighborhood.
Remember was all the plate said, but it held an entire battalion.
The 10th Veterans Day since David's death arrived crisp and golden. Catherine, silver-haired, wore her same navy dress and walked to the park. A Greyhound bus pulled up outside the park, smaller now. Only 5 Marines stepped out, one in a wheelchair. Sergeant Morley leaned on his grandson, but his back straightened when he saw Catherine.
I brought his favorite today. Fried chicken and collard greens. For you, David. Not just a meal. A thank you for 8 years of showing up.
The surviving squad nodded, eyes moist in the sunlight. The bronze plate caught the light, the food steaming against the cold metal.
The circle was smaller, but unbroken.
They sat on the benches, sharing stories of a man who once lived across the street. The park hummed with a quiet, enduring life, the bronze plate at its heart. Years later, Catherine sat on her bench in the park. Her navy dress had faded to pale blue. The bronze plate on the stone table was empty, except for David's cap and the bronze star. A red, white, blue ribbon was tied to the armrest of her bench, faded but still bright.
The benches are empty now, but the plate holds everything.
She closed her eyes, the afternoon sun warm on her face. A breeze moved through the park, rustling leaves across the silent stone. Across the street, her porch still held a chair and a candle, unlit. On the bronze plate, David's cap rested next to his medal, and the single word, remember, caught the light. The quiet street held the story, long after the last bus had gone. And remember was enough.